The following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Last year I was sitting at a desk as a sales manager, and now I'm official McLaren F1 simulated test driver.
So there's 1.4 behind.
This opportunity is huge.
That's it, 46 watt. That's faster than the factory McLaren driver. And he's done 6 laps.
Let's go race.
Good evening, hello and welcome to V8 Online for round number 6 of the Geodesic Racing Sprint Series Australasia. Tonight we head to the marvellous Circuit de Spa Francorchamps for a 1 hour enduro. It's going to be action-packed, it's going to be quick, it's going to be intense. And we're looking forward to bringing it here on V8 Online on the iRacing Esports Network. My name is Jay Kennedy. Alongside me in the booth, as always, we've got we got Brock Caddo. I just called you your team boss. How are you, Brock? I'm sorry,
That's
mate.
an insult. I'm sorry. I'm not so good now, Jay. Oh my goodness. I hope Brant's watching this because he can hear that. I'm good, and it's great to be back here for the Geodesic Racing Series. That is the GT3s at Spa. We've got an extremely cold track here tonight, 19 degrees. So hopefully see some absolute smashing lap times out there and some good competition through the field as well.
I'll make sure I get our other fellow commentator's name right, David Haynes. Welcome along. It's going to be a great night of racing. An hour enduro, 2 pit stops, and this huge pit lane. It's going to really mix up the strategy.
Yeah, exactly. So not only is the weather very nice for racing, but we're going to have some very possibly varied strategies, some wide pit windows. So we'll have to keep our eyes across all of that. That's going to make it exciting.
Sure is. Qualifying is currently underway. They've got a minute and a half left to complete their final lap times before we get into the race. But it looks like it's all John Peasnick at the moment. Peasnick was out by about 0.6 of a second not that long ago, with Lewis Paulo Gallen just closing that gap. But that McLaren looks quick tonight.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And interestingly enough, the GT3 series here has been quite competitive in the last few rounds. Like, we've seen very small gaps, particularly between the likes of Peasnick and Gallon, and also Rizzo. But for some reason, that McLaren, the only McLaren in our field, I might point out, is hooked up around Spa at the moment. And Dave was mentioning before the race, there's some good straight line speed in the McLaren, which obviously around a track like Spa would really help it. But if Peasnick has this sort of pace in qualifying, can carry that across to the race, gets a clean start, this could be all over Red Rover after the first lap if he can stream ahead, and obviously without safety cars getting in the way as well.
That is a big thing as well. Safety cars have been known to come out at this circuit. The last season when we were here, we had 2 safety cars from memory. So there is potential for more safety cars that we're going to see throughout this race and throughout this series, especially from what we've seen earlier in the season.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I think we're in some great racing here tonight, and Spa always throws up a really interesting dynamic, particularly around the drafting down those long straights up into Oi Rouge and down the Camel Straight there. So it'll be interesting to see who has the bravery to throw it down the inside and who just sticks in behind and plays the long game, saves a bit of fuel, tries to play that strategy game. Don't be surprised if we see the likes of Silvassi, Rizzo and Winkelmann play a slightly different strategy, which we did see last season. First lap safety car, they came in, ran long and took the race away. So that was a really interesting dynamic. Now, throw back to you, Jay, as we go to grid now.
Yep, so John Peasnick will start from pole, 3.5 of a second ahead of Lewis Paulo Gallen. Anthony Winkelmann and Zach Hanlon on the second ray, very, very close between those two drivers. There's a massive gap from there to the rest of the field, though. Ross Rizzo in 5th, John McDonnell in 6th, Martin Silvassi 7th, Trent Thomas in 8th position, Gene Fitty's 9th, Marcelo Rastres in 10th position.
And in 11th, we have Dan King tonight. 12th is John Schultz. 13th, Daniel Cheney. 14th, Wayne G. Hewitt. 15th, Mr. Jamie McKnight. 16th, Damon Stockton. 17th, Cody Birchar. 18th, Cameron Stover. 19th, Alex J. John. And rounding out our top 20 here, David Mulhall.
In 21st.
And behind them,
you go for it,
21st is Will Chen, then James Hanna. Following them is Andrew Mogridge, Blair Walton, Taylor Oakes, Les Peck, Alex Court, Phil Otto, and in 29th position, Tim Owema.
I believe from there the only driver that is taken to the track is Corey Ott. The rest of the drivers have decided that they will not race. From back in the field, actually Jackson Harlow is taken to the circuit as well as Stevie Anson. So we have a couple of guys that have not put in lap times in qualifying. It's going to be a tough old drive to come through the field, because Spa, whilst it's nice and wide and flowing and great in the GT3s, if you're stuck behind slower cars, you can lose the gaps to those faster drivers that you should be racing with very, very quickly.
Well, that's it. And that, particularly around a track like Spa, the draft is so critical, particularly in the first sector, like I mentioned, up through Oi Rouge, the main straight there, and then Camel Straight as well. So you really need to keep in that draft to have a good chance at an overtaking position, or utilize your car's handling capabilities, much like the BMW and the Audi, compared to the likes of the Mercedes and the McLaren with that better engine in them. That means they have a bit higher top end speed there. So I'll be interested to see. This track is a really interesting test of the car dynamics and the way they work. And it's much like in Formula One when they mention how you've got to set up the car to maximize the straight line speed, but also keep that grip going throughout that middle sector. So I'm really interested to see how this pans out. As we've actually just had John Peacenik, sorry, he's just disappeared off my screen there.
Yeah, he's having some sort of technical issue and just disappeared off the track. So hopefully he can make it back out before we get the green flag. Get his technical issues sorted. But decent field tonight with this race at Spa. All in one service. So we've had to start a tiny little bit early for the broadcast tonight as we come through the bus stop chicane. And we come up to La Source. Of course, this is not the start line. That is the finish line there. So still got a little bit to go before we get the green flag. And that can sometimes catch drivers out at this layout when drivers think that we've come past the finish line. We go, but we're not. We've still got a little bit to go.
Yeah, that's it. Just quickly, John Peacenik has actually dropped out of the server after putting in that mega qualifying lap. Luis Paulo Gallen has inherited first place, and he has gone now. So he has gotten a good jump there, allowed Zach Hanlon. Zach Hanlon's quite close there to Winkleman, but this is going to be Luis Paulo Gallen out front as we come down into Oi Rouge now. Watching through the rest of the field here, already got side by side between Silvassi and Trent Thomas. They nearly made contact up through Oi Rouge there. Looking back through the rest of the field, so far so good, which is great to see. Nearly going 3-1. Oh, we've got contact. Mauricio Lastres is in the wall there. Down the Camel Straight. One to go. Oh, we got a car in the air as well.
Gene Fiddies is upside down. We've got a BMW on the side of the track as well. I believe that's Blair. No, that's Taylor Oakes. Is it? It's blown up on the side of the circuit. This stage we're staying green. Those cars have escaped and got back to the pits. It's up the inside. Comes Jordan McDonald up the inside of Ross Rizzo and takes 4th position away. Gallen's broken away a little bit from Hanlon, who's got past Winkleman. Rizzo comes back on McDonald.
Yeah, so it's all going on here, and it looks like we will stay green at the moment, which is really good to see. And John Peacenik has just gotten back into the service, so may still be able to stay on this lead lap. Safety car would probably help him at the moment. So we can see Rizzo has lost contact with that top 3 battle going on, as Hanlon has actually gotten past Winkleman there for 2nd place as well. McDonald looking racy in that OPR Audi at the moment as we come through the 2nd sector of the track here. Rizzo pulling ahead a little bit at the moment. Looking back in the field,
Silvassi.
I think we've just had Silvassi.
Yeah, Silvassi's around. What's happened there?
Silvassi has spun it on his own there. He got a little bit of curb and he spun himself around. And yeah, we'll now have to wait for the rest of the field to go by there. His car's stuck. He's not going anywhere. He's going to have to escape to pit lane by the looks of it.
It's a heartbreaking start for the Trick Sim Sports driver. Somehow got the car beached in the sand trap. Going to go back and get another look at the original start of the race too, and get a better look at how that lap 1 incident played out, with Gene Fiddies and Taylor Oakes ending up upside down. Disappointing start for both those guys.
Yeah, Taylor Oakes, Gene Fiddies got the grass and pitched across the track there, and Taylor Oakes had nowhere to go. Just had to run into him. Basically, the way it happened, he just came out of nowhere, and Oakes went straight into the wall, unfortunately. So that was all a little bit messy coming onto the Camel Straight there. It looks like Gene was on the inside there, and there was massive netco between Lastres and Fiddies, and that put him in the wall, and then Gene went across the track and Oakes has just run into him. So unfortunately, a bit of that network issue there has caused Lastres and Fiddies to come together.
Anthony Winkleman looking very, very racy behind Zach Hanlon. Thought about making a move into Lacombe and couldn't quite get it done, so tucks back in behind, possibly strategy too. The Trick Sim Sports guys, we know, very, very smart in regards to fuel saving it and making that strategy game work.
Yeah,
indeed. And Zach Hanlon was very racy initially off the start. He's up 2 positions from where he started and still got his eyes on Luis Paulo Gallen in front of him. But Anthony Winkleman, who's still got his eyes on Zach Hanlon, and they're very close as they come down towards Piff Path.
Interesting listening from onboard Winkleman too. He's just getting out of the throttle slightly early, just saving every single milliliter of fuel. If you can save a couple of seconds in the pit stop, knowing that there's 2 pit stops in this huge pit lane that loses you a minute, it's a massive advantage if you can gain a couple of seconds at the stop.
Well, that's exactly it. As I was saying earlier, Trick Sim Sports are the masters of strategy. We've seen them work it so many times to their advantage. And this could be, obviously we do have an endurance race here tonight, so we're not even 5 minutes into this race. Probably just we tick over the next lap, we'll be 5 minutes in. That's still 55 minutes to go and 2 pit stops. So this could be a long game play by Trick Sim Sports. And as you were saying, David, Hanlon was racing at the start, but hasn't been able to really pull away from that Mercedes thus far, and Gallon hasn't actually skipped away too much either. So there's definitely still a lot to play for at the moment as they come around and do their first fast laps, with Winkelmann less than a tenth slower than Hanlon, and Gallon just a couple of tenths faster than them.
Pretty tight lap times for the first flying lap between those top three guys, but Gallon a couple of tenths faster. Just behind them, Rizzo's broken away from Jordan McDonald. So we've got David Mulhall, Corey Ott, and contact between Mulhall and Cameron Stubber. They're going to go almost side by side coming up to Eau Rouge.
Yep, through that first lap chaos, there have been some big winners, and one of them is Corey Ott, who's up 16th places. He was unable to set a qualifying time, but obviously managed to negotiate some of the chaos and has enough speed in that Mercedes that he's now up into 15th place.
John Peasnick has also got back out onto the circuit. He is one lap down, but fingers crossed we can see him move through the field as Mulhall holds onto that position from Cameron Stubber, who looked to make a move. Big slide for Mulhall.
Yeah, these guys are already struggling with the cars a little bit here, trying to get the most out of them on this cold track here tonight. So, Mulhall, another slide. He might just catch it here. He's going to have to put it on the apex and lose massive amounts of spots there as he has to try and get it going again. Well done to keep that off the track, but unfortunately that Audi just doesn't seem to be hooked up. Maybe a little too little downforce for him today for this middle section of the track is proving hard to handle.
There's a little bit of a pack of cards starting to form behind James Hanna in the 0-5. Got Court, Oima, Janssen, Walton and Peck all close in. And we'll see if any of these guys shuffle positions. At the front of the field, it has settled down. The cars all fairly evenly gapped for now. But this pack looks very, very messy and very, very racy.
Yeah, that's it. It's great to see some battling going on in the mid pack here as we're looking at Corey Ott now, who's coming up on the back of this Pink Force India style Ferrari. He's actually closing in quite a lot as well. That's on Andrew Mogridge there, as Mogridge goes defensive into the bus stop. So Corey Ott obviously has a little bit of pace under him as well in this Mercedes, and is trying to show that here tonight against that Ferrari. The Ferrari been a bit of a bogey car for some drivers as well in the GT3 class as they come through now, as they're coming into the final turn of this particular circuit.
Just getting a replay going back as well, because Zach Hanlon has lost a spot and lost ground to Anthony Winkelmann. So just getting a CPR replay, see if we can pick up what's happened to Hanlon to lose a spot. I'm guessing an off-track at Blanchimont or at the bus stop.
Oh wow, that was mega at Blanchimont. Yeah, he had a big slide and a wiggle through there, and he's actually rubbed the wall as well, cut across the grass, but managed to keep the car going and just lose that spot to Winkelmann. So, yeah, very lucky to not be out of the race with that moment there. Just had a bit of the rear end just caught him off guard as he came through there. But a bit odd to happen in the GT3, but he'll keep on going here. But that advantage that he did have over Winkelmann, and perhaps that strategy that Winkelmann had, now down the toilet for the time being.
So we go to Jamie McKnight battling with Alex John. These two guys going at it very, very close right now. Sorry, David.
I was going to say, it's not the first Audi we've seen look rather unstable in the rear end in these cold conditions.
Another one around.
Something they have to look out for.
377 Audi is around too, so another Audi having issues, and possibly just, as you said before, Brock, downforce could be an issue. Some drivers that haven't really thought about a race setup for this car.
Yeah, that's it. And I mean, some drivers, it may just be the Audi itself is not quite suited to this track. I would have thought through the middle of the circuit it would have been nicer, but we're seeing some of these incidents are happening in the high-speed sections. So some of these drivers may have sacrificed downforce for top-end speed, but of course, when you come to these high-speed sections that require a bit more downforce, you're struggling with the car. And I've just watched Hanlon then as well. He's gone wide again at Blanchimont. Probably picked up an off-track there as well. That car is not looking comfortable underneath him, trying to get through some of these high-speed sections. So, again, just something that we talk about with Reese as well when he's around is the differences between these cars and what makes them strong and then what makes them weaker in some areas. And obviously this Audi at straight line speed is quite a large weakness compared to the likes of the Mercedes. And Hanlon and a few other drivers are really trying to make up for that here tonight.
Very, very good pace though from Lewis Gallon. His last lap, 12.9, 13.5 for Winkelmann, 13.2 for Hanlon. So some very, very good pace right now from Lewis Paulo Gallon as he now gets the gap out to 2 seconds. Here comes Hanlon, though, using this draft down the Camel Straight.
Yeah, we'll watch Hanlon here and see if he goes for the move. I feel like Hanlon, he's got a lot to prove in terms of these racing series that we have on Wednesday night, because Ulster Esports haven't had a lot of luck here, and I feel like there's a lot of him that wants to be able to take home a podium or a win for these guys. So he's showing some quite good pace here, but certainly going to have to up it a little bit to get past Winkleman and then onto Luis Paulo Gallen before it runs off into the distance too much here. So he goes a little bit wide there as Winkleman he taps the brakes on the exit of the corner. And it looks like that Mercedes is actually pretty well planted for Winkleman through the middle section of this track here. And they're pulling away from Rizzo and McDonald behind as well. So this first, second and third here have got a nice little pack going that seem to be able to pull away from Ross Rizzo in fourth place, who is our current reigning champion.
Just saw Corey Ott make the move down the Camel Straight to go past Andrew Mogridge. Probably took an extra lap than what he would have liked. And now Cameron Stubber. Ferrari versus Ferrari battle. We haven't seen that too much in this series, and it's great to see some more Ferraris out there.
Oh, that's exactly it. We've got a line of 3 Ferraris here at the moment, so they're a nice looking car, and it's good to see a few guys out there battling. And it also nullifies that whole battle between the manufacturers, of who's got the best car and who's best where. It comes down to pure driver skill in a sense with this sort of battle here. So Stubber is looking quite strong here as Mogridge. That he doesn't look quite comfortable. The car just isn't behaving the way he wants to and can't quite get the speed out of it. We'll see here if Stubber can get in the draft and maybe hint at a move down into the bus stop as they come down this rather long winding straight here. Mogridge still looking out ahead far enough as Otters. He's cleared off into the distance now. Mogridge goes a little bit wide, trying to maximise the speed out of Blanchimont. It looks like Stubber won't be quite close enough to make a move here, and will just have to fall in behind at the bus stop yet again. And then we'll watch them now as they come out of the bus stop here, and Stubber's even made up a little bit of time there, so his opportunity will probably be out of Oil Rouge onto the Camel Straight. As they come up to the last turn here, he almost wanted to take a look there down the inside, maybe getting a little bit frustrated with looking at the pink behind of that Sahara Force India liveried Ferrari. Now very much in the draft as they come down through to Oil Rouge. We'll have to wait and see what sort of run he gets. Obviously, the run through here is extremely important to how the Camel Straight pans out. Mogridge didn't use all the track there, and Stubber looks like he has got quite a large speed advantage now. Coming down the Camel Straight, Stubber having a little look to the right-hand side, and now he's going to pull out to the right. We'll see if he tries to make the move down here. They're side by side now. Stubber's got that move well and truly made, but Mogridge is going to try to stick it around the outside here, get the inside line. Oh, Stubber, he's going to try and stick it there too, and they're very, very close there. This is some great racing from these guys, not making contact, but side by side. This is some great racing here tonight, guys.
Exactly, and that's what makes that little section of corners through Lacombe there very good, is that there's the right, left, right. You can, if you're on the outside, hold your line out there and try and hold your position, or the inside line can also work. So that flick back and back, or can make some very good racing between these equal cars.
Just getting a CPR car parts replay of David Mulhall having a massive insert up through Radion and into the fence. So he's still going, but he's dropped back a little bit. And he'll have to work his way back through the field now. Dropped all the way back to 26th position. He's actually pulled it up. Car looks like it is toast. So unfortunate for David Mulhall. He was going all right. He was in the top 20. Disappointing end to his race.
Yeah, that's unfortunate to see. And just quickly on the topic of the Audis actually seeing David Mulhall here, we've had our own Bobo Albert point out that the distribution of the 5 kilogram weight penalty has been moved around a little bit by iRacing in the last update for the Audi. That 5 kilo weight penalty, so could be messing with the setups a bit and with the way the car handles. And obviously having this update only in the last week, people are still getting used to it at the moment.
Stubber just had a massive moment coming through Blanchimont. Almost looked like it was going to be close enough to get a move as we come up to quarter race distance already. This race is flying by. It's going past very, very quickly. Is looking again is Stubber, and Steve Jansen's closed up on the back of this train very, very quickly. Last lap he got past Alex Court, and he's closed up probably a second and a half in that last lap. Steve Jansen is on a charge.
Yeah, that's it. And Steve Jansen, a very, very spirited racer. If he sees a move, he will go for it. And I've personally raced against him in Scops, and he knows that there's a gap, he will go for it center style. So now just looking at this battle between Mogridge and Stubber. Stubber is going to try go for the move against Mogridge again in that exact same position. Steve Jansen behind as well, looking on James Hanna, pulls it in behind there, and Mogridge, he's got the inside line, but Stubber is going to have it here, and it looks like he's made that move stick. And behind, we've got to watch Hanna. This is a big battle pack going on here.
Oh, they're touching!
Oh, man, into the
Jansen.
break zone, and Jansen has just about hit Mogridge coming in there. These two blue and black Ferraris are fighting it out hard with Mogridge, and now Mogridge has lost that time. And in that pink Ferrari.
James Hanna got forced out wide there by Mogridge, and through went Steve Jansen. Stubber's just blitzed away from that point too, so Mogridge is being a little bit of a cork in the bottle here. He's holding this train up because have a look at the massive gap that Stubber's already pulled. Ott's already got 6 seconds on these guys since he got through as well, so here comes Jansen getting this done.
And that's exactly what I... Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying about Steve Jansen. He goes for a gap and he knows when to make that move. And just to point out as well, Dylan Shepherd in Race Control has just pointed out that there is a warning to all drivers about track limits. So everyone has now been warned. I have been seeing a bit of that. Drivers have been using Blanchimont particularly and trying to take advantage of those off tracks and not getting a slowdown. So now having a look back at Jansen and Mogridge, and we've got John Peasnick here trying to unlap himself as well. This is a big fight here with a lapped car who has got arguably a lot of pace, and Jansen going to try and throw it down the inside here of Mogridge. Thinks better of it. Mogridge just about makes the apex there, coming through the last parts of the bus stop here. Jansen's looking very, very itchy to get past Peasnick as well. This is obviously important for Peasnick's championship to finish this race and make it through to the end.
Track has slightly warmed over the last 15 minutes of racing too by about a degree. Start of the race it was about 18.5. It is now up to 19.5, but still difficult conditions to get temp into these tyres, isn't it?
Oh, that's exactly it, yeah. So these drivers will be struggling a little bit, particularly as we've seen earlier in the race with the Audi. Those high-speed corners, if the rear tyres are a little bit cooled, you just lose a bit of grip, and these cars aren't the easiest to catch when they go. And Jansen's going to try and throw it down the inside of Mogridge here, under braking as well. Jansen's just caught a bit of a slide there as well through the middle of the corner, which was a very well done pass there. And Peasnick has spun. Peasnick is just tapped the wall there as well. That is not good for his championship and for his drive.
I think he's decided that he is day done. We also saw Alex John get past Jamie McKnight too, just before this too. So a few moves starting to happen now. Strategy will be really starting to come into play, and that's disappointing for Peasnick. The night has just gone from bad to worse from the moment he got on the grid.
Yeah, unfortunately, his internet gave out on him, and then, that happened. I think he was pushing real hard to try and make that work, try and put him in a position if there was a safety car, he could get back on that lead lap, but unfortunately not working out for him. So looking now, Mogridge has definitely lost a little bit of time there, and just checking in our leaders, Luis Paulo Gallen is 2.5 seconds in front of Anthony Winkleman, and Winkleman's pulled out about a 7/10 gap, 5/10 now to Hanlon behind. And Hanlon has now come into the pits. Thank you, David. Yeah, so Hanlon in for that first pit stop, as Jay was saying, just about a quarter of the way into this race. So this is strategy starting to play out here, and it'll be really hard to tell who comes out where until the last pit stop when that last fuel dump is done.
Yeah, exactly, because with the 2 pit stops, some of them will have potentially a long stop and a short stop, and it will remain to be seen which drivers decide to take the shorter stop early. That might be what Zach Hanlon is doing now, and which ones will take the long stop first and then maybe take just a splash to get them to the end later.
Got an awesome battle pack forming for 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th. Alex John, Jamie McKnight, Damon Stockton, Dan King, and we're on board with Wayne Hewitt. Thought he might have been close enough to get a run coming through Eau Rouge Radion and getting the run down the Kemmel Straight, but not quite close enough this time. So this is a very, very intense pack of cars right now. Those front 3 in this pack have broken away a little bit after a little mistake from Dan King.
And this is nice to see as well, Damon Stockton in that BMW as well. So we don't see too many BMWs out there, but they do have quite a good driving strength as well. So he's right into this battle pack here for 9th, for 9th, 10th, and 11th, I believe it is, with Alex J. John and that Milo Mercedes out the front there, McKnight, and then Stockton. Nice and close, and in behind there as well, we've got Dan King and Wayne Hewitt very close to each other as well. Dan King in that Geodesic Racing livery, and Wayne Hewitt, I believe, in the RPR Audi livery. So this will be really interesting to see how these two battles fold out and whether they turn into one big 5-car battle.
Well, Corey Ott's closing up on these guys fairly quick at the rate of about half a second a lap, so it could be a 6-car fight for positions in the top 10, depending on how the pit stops play out as we reach 1/3. So we're probably going to see a few cars come into the pits this time by.
Yeah, I dare say these some of these guys will just think very logically, split that race up into thirds. So you do one on the 40-minute mark, one on the 20-minute mark left, I should say, and then you're through to the end of the race. But those guys up the front there, Hanlon might be wanting to get some clear air away from Winkleman and try and put in some really fast laps that'll then get him to get in front there. As we've actually had Stockton and McKnight both dive into the pit lane at the same contact.
Oh, contact!
Stockton's blocking the pit lane there. They've made contact as they went side by side into the pit entry.
Wow. Lastra's also in the pits, but yeah, that's game-changing for those guys because they were in a pretty intense battle there.
Yeah, that was, well, unnecessary, really. I mean, it looked like Stockton went for the move down the inside of McKnight as they came through the bus stop. They made side-by-side contact, and that was fine. Stockton was just ahead, and McKnight dove it in there and hit him and spun him round. So it looks like it was a bit of a heated moment out on track there, and unfortunately it's ended up in contact, and yeah, well, losing time to both of them, unfortunately.
Dan King, Wayne Hewitt still go at it. Up the inside, Wayne Hewitt goes. Move done on Dan King. Nice little move, just using what I thought was going to happen the lap previous, but have a look at how close Corey Ott is. Last lap around, he was a full second quicker. Won't be long before he's on the back of these two.
Yeah, continuing his charge through the pack. He's now 21 spots up from where he started. Now, obviously, pit stops are taking a bit of an effect on that, but he's going to come out of this first pit stop cycle with some great spots made up, and he's still got speed on the guys in front of him. So I dare say that Corey Ott could walk away with a top 10 from this race, provided this next 40 minutes go well for him.
Zach Hanlon is out in fresh air as well. He's currently in 18th position as he has a massive slide, and around he goes. Hanlon is not having a great night of it.
No, that's really not what he needed. He needed to be putting in fast, consistent laps to make sure that he could get Winkleman and get back out in front of him and try chase down Gallon. And now, unless Winkleman has a problem, that's going to be hard for him. So that he probably just lost a couple of seconds there as well. These Audis are just not performing the way we're used to seeing them perform.
And now our leader is coming into the pit lane. Luis Paulo Gallen is on the lane.
Yep,
Anthony
and Rizzo.
Ross, Jordan McDonald, all of them now coming into the pits.
Yeah, it looks like everyone's coming in this lap, which means that the strategy for a lot of these guys at the moment is not going to be too extreme, but the next stint is probably where the real strategy is going to come into play, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. There'll be, I think this stint we'll see, I'll keep an eye on the stops because that'll show, roughly give us an idea of how much fuel people are taking. Hanlon actually took about 14.5 seconds of fuel, while some of the other guys, Lastres and Stockton and McKnight all took 16.5 to 17 seconds. So there's already a little bit of difference in the fuel consumption. The real interesting thing to see will be the likes of Luis Paulo, Gallen, Winkleman and Rizzo, who are first, second and third at the moment, and exactly where they end up with their fuel and how much time they spend in pit lane, whether Winkleman tries to jump Gallon or Gallon tries to get further ahead here. I'll be very curious to see.
Hanlon comes on to the front straight to start his 11th lap of this race. I just heard someone hit another car as they're coming through the pits. And away goes Gallon, so he's back out on the circuit. And Rizzo has jumped Winkleman. This is interesting.
Winkleman has been stopped for 32.5 seconds.
Penalty.
Speeding in the pit lane potentially is a 15-second hold, so that would look about right for a pit lane speeding penalty.
Wow.
It's not a great night for some of our drivers out here tonight. They're just Spa is not being nice to them at the moment.
That's put Hanlon back into third position. We thought he would have dropped down a little bit, but he hasn't ended up too far behind. He's obviously lost time with that spin, but it's not as bad as I was expecting it to be, as he's tucked right in underneath the rear wing of our now second place Ross Rizzo.
And this is important for Hanlon, I think. This is almost like a free pass, if you will. He's now third, and he has got better pace than Rizzo. Like, he was keeping ahead of Rizzo consistently. And when you look at their best lap, it looks like Hanlon hasn't actually registered a best lap. He might have off-tracked every one of his laps so far, but he was lapping in the low 213s, whereas Rizzo has been lapping, his best lap is in the high 213s. So Hanlon has got a lot of pace in that Audi. He's just got to make it work and get past.
As we were talking about before, it's sometimes a little bit more difficult to pass at this circuit, but seeing how wide the track is, you can hold those outside lines a little bit easier at this circuit than you can at others, especially in these high grip cars, the GT3s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I think I just find it interesting that Hanlon, my JRT showing he's got 39 incident points at the moment. So he's either my JRT is lying to me or he's really abusing track limits at the moment. Just then at Blanchimont, he got another off track. As Rizzo goes defensive here, Hanlon's going to try fire it around the outside of the bus stop, get that inside line for the last part of it. He's run a little bit wide here, but it looks like he's got that move done on Rizzo, so that will put him up into second place now. But Rizzo's going to come back at him, see if he can get the run around the outside here. Might be able to do the over-under, but no, Hanlon's got the traction out of here, but watch for Rizzo to come back with that draft and that superior engine in that Mercedes. As they come down now through towards Eau Rouge. That Audi, it looks like the Mercedes is closing in on the Audi at the moment. Mind you, that Audi's looking pretty planted through Eau Rouge. Both using all the track and a little bit more just to maximize that speed. Hanlon gone middle of the road here, trying to block Rizzo off at the moment. And Rizzo flashes off the screen for a second there, and Hanlon trying to block him off down the middle of the road. Rizzo's going to throw it down the inside, but won't make that move. Interesting to see the gamesmanship from Rizzo there.
Well, one thing that Hanlon's got to be careful of is he knows that he'll have a longer stop at this final stop. He obviously took that slightly shorter pit stop earlier on, so this last stop is going to be a bit longer. He obviously did it to try and get track position, but that spin has not helped. So Rizzo will likely jump Hanlon unless Hanlon can pull a decent gap in this stint.
That's exactly it. And right now, Rizzo took a 16.9 second stop, whereas Hanlon had 14.7 seconds. So he's got to get 2 seconds ahead of Rizzo to negate that gap in the pit stop and hope that the fuel numbers work out relatively equal at the end of this race. So as we can see, he's already pulling that gap at the moment, but he's got to keep on going, and keep on making that work. And in the meantime, Luis Paulo Gallen has a near 10-second gap on these guys in second and third, so he is out of here.
Hanlon's already pulled a second on Rizzo, so the pace is definitely there from Hanlon as we go to a battle for 14th and 15th now. Jamie McKnight had a very, very long pit stop time. We obviously saw that there was the incident between he and Stockton, but his pit lane traverse time was 5 seconds longer than pretty much every other driver in the field, but his pit stop time was pretty much the same. A bit of a strange one. Obviously some sort of issue coming into the pits there for McKnight, other than what we saw and expected from that incident.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what that is. He did drop off at the back of Stockton a lot after they got going again, so maybe something to do with that. But interesting to see. He's still down in 14th place at the moment, and I think most of the people that are out on track, in fact, all of them have actually taken their pit stops now. So that'll be his effective position. And Corey Ott, after all the pit stops have come out, in 10th place at the moment. So that's a really good effort for him, up 21 positions. But we'll keep watching McKnight here with Steve Jansen as they're battling it out coming into the bus stop here. McKnight trying to defend hard, goes a little bit wide here. Jansen probably gets a little bit better run off of the bus stop there, but not quite able to maximize it at that secondary exit. Now they're going to come
back
down.
In the field. Sorry, Brock. We've got Martin Silvassi and Alex Court both facing the wrong way. Is that at Blanchimont?
Oh, that was just before Blanchimont by the looks of it.
That's a fast part of the circuit.
Yeah, it looks like Winkleman's tried to go down the inside of Court there, and Court has squeezed him a little bit, and they've made pretty heavy contact. Silvassi got the raw end of the deal there as he whacked the barriers on the outside there, so his day just going from bad to worse.
Get another look at that and you can see board with Court, and that was a huge incident. And as you said, Silvassi's definitely taken the biggest hit out of that. Court actually has managed to get back going and back out on the circuit. But Martin Silvassi, he might be day done. That was a very, very heavy impact.
Yeah, well, he's trundling down pit lane now, so he's going to have lost quite a lot of time. As you said earlier, the pit lane transit time here is about a minute without your pit stop or anything like that. So he may just choose to exit the server, much like John Peasick did, and put Spa behind him as we move on to the next round in the next couple of weeks. But as he trundles down pit lane now, we'll look back through the field. Trent Thomas is actually embroiled in a little bit of a battle here. He's got, I think that's Jordan McDonald just behind him there, and it looks like they've actually swapped spots throughout the lap here. So now McDonald's still got a bit of pace in that Audi of his, but he's also got Winkelmann ranging up behind him here, sorry. And Thomas getting ahead a little bit. Thomas is he's that quiet achiever, if you will. We don't talk about him much during the races for the most part, but he's always up there in that top 4 or top 5 positions. So now, as they come down towards Eau Rouge here, we've got McDonald being chased down by Winkelmann, and we'll be interesting to see, depending on that run through Eau Rouge, just how they fare. And we saw that the Audi isn't quite as nice in a straight line as what that Mercedes is, as Winkelmann uses all the track there to try and get past McDonald. McDonald, not a great run there. It's going to make him go the hard way round on the outside, but Winkelmann has the help of Trent Thomas's draft there, as they do get quite close down this Kemmel Straight. Coming into the braking zone here, McDonald is in prime time position, but Winkelmann is going to get the inside line there and take that position, just cut him off and make sure that he can't get by again. Great move there by Winkelmann.
It's not over though, because McDonald's going to come back and try and throw it up the inside. Won't be able to do it too far back now, but that was a very, very aggressive move from Winkelmann. But you can see the intent from Winkelmann. He is not happy with how this race has played out. He was on for a fairly easy second and fighting for the win. He's now going to try and find his way back to the podium.
Yeah, exactly. That 15-second penalty he received for speeding in the pit lane has put him back behind these guys, and I think on pace, he fancies he deserves to be ahead of them. So he's got work to do now that unfortunately he's set for himself.
Interesting too that Zach Hanlon is closing up on Luis Paulo Gallon, about 2/10 a lap. Probably too little time left in the race to make a real indent, but one mistake and Hanlon will be right back there again as well. So this race is not over, although at the front it is out to now 8.9 seconds. It was at 10 seconds earlier.
Yeah, so Hanlon definitely has some good speed in that Audi of his, but still yet to register a best lap, because all of his laps, by the looks of it, have been off tracks. So it's a bit hard to get a good view on his pace. Looking at the iRacing laps here, his last lap was a 2:13.1. So he's actually putting in some very good laps here. That was 2/10 faster than the likes of Gallon, but Gallon has gone about half a tenth faster that lap. So they're chopping and changing, and Hanlon really has to kick it into gear if he wants to rein Gallon in before the end of this race. And I think the only thing that can really help him is a safety car.
And have a look at the gap that he's already pulled on Rizzo. Out to what, 2.5, nearly 3 seconds already in what's that, 3 laps since he got past. So the pace is very, very good from Hanlon. He just hasn't had the luck on his side as this race has gone on. And two cars that are still battling are Wayne Hewitt and Dan King. King's just lost a spot from Wayne Hewitt. But we saw these guys battling before the pit stops. They're now back into it again. Gap is a little bit spread as here comes Winkelmann. Sorry to change where we're looking, but Winkelmann, that's a very, very easy move for him on Trent Thomas.
Yeah, Winkelmann's been carrying massive pace up through Eau Rouge and Radion, and he came from quite a way back on Trent Thomas that time.
Hanlon around again.
Oh, wow, let's look at that right now.
Sorry to cut you off there, David, but yeah,
no, that's
again.
huge.
So that's put him back. He's lost, what, 5, 6, 7 seconds just from a lazy, slow spin. Did a good job to not end up rolling back into the fence. Let Rizzo by, got it going again.
And he's not the first Audi we've seen have problems in that corner of Brussels. I think maybe the downhill of nature of the corner, it must just be upsetting the Audi with that sort of topography.
A little low aero that we're sort of guessing a lot of the Audis will be running here, definitely playing an impact as well. Cold conditions will be playing an impact as well, but that's now means that Luis Paulo Gallon has got a massive lead, and he may not be troubled for the rest of this race with only 12 laps to go.
Yeah, that's it. Hanlon was probably the one chance at catching Gallon in any way, shape or form, and excuse me, it looks like now that chance is gone. So Rizzo is back up into second. Hanlon didn't lose any other positions, but what he has lost is a huge chunk of time at the moment. So he went from being about 9 seconds behind to 16 and a half behind Gallon. So provided Gallon doesn't make any mistakes, and in saying that, he's running a flawless race at the moment, just keeping it straight and racing as hard as he can. This enduro race looks like it'll be his after this next round of pit stops, provided everything goes smoothly for him.
We're not too far off seeing guys back into the pits again as well, with 25 minutes left on the clock. Probably another 2, maybe 3 laps before we see drivers jumping back in for that final stop. So they're only 5 laps into this stint, but they are on lap 16 in this race. So they did 9 laps in the first stint. 5, 6 laps now. Well, they're on the 6th lap, I should say. So the only one that's really out of sequence is Zach Hanlon.
He jumps through Lacombe. He missed the corner entirely that time.
Wow. Really struggling.
He's lost further positions now as Winkleman, Trent Thomas, Jordan McDonald, they all get through on Zach Hanlon, who's now back into 6th place from 2nd place, maybe just a lap and a half ago.
Outbroke himself and got the big slide on coming into the corner and thought it was easier to take to the grass than to try and save it. No,
which
that's hurt
in
him big
hindsight, in hindsight is probably a good move, because it means he's kept it out of the wall, but it just means, yeah, it's going to be a story for a lot of these drivers of what could have been, and, you know, where their races could have gone, particularly with some of our front runners tonight. They have just had some of the worst luck out here, and now I think Rizzo is 12.3 seconds behind on the last lap from Luis Paulo Gallon. So, yeah, as we always say about Rizzo, he's consistent and he's always there or thereabouts. And in this case, he's just kept it clean, and now he's up the front where we've seen him before, just because he's being consistent and keeping out of trouble.
It's amazing how many podiums he's got in this series from just keeping the car out of trouble, keeping it on the circuit and playing smart strategy. Doesn't always have great pace. He doesn't have the fastest pace. He's just consistent, but amazing how often we see Ross Rizzo in a podium position, and he very rarely starts in a podium position. He just somehow gets himself into great spots, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly it. He's there's a reason he's got the number 1 on his car. We can definitely say that, and it's because it's that consistency in racing. Some of these guys, their laps go up and down, or they have incidents, the car isn't behaving, but Rizzo just seems to have a setup that works for him no matter where he goes, and he's out in 2nd place now, and with a 5-second gap back to his teammate of Anthony Winkleman. So he's got quite a comfortable gap, as has Luis Paulo Gallon up front, as we come to about 22.5 minutes left in this race. So definitely prime time pitting opportunities coming up very shortly, as the fuel tanks will need a little bit of a top up to get to the very end of this race.
Interesting that last lap Winkleman was the fastest car out on track, so Winkleman is still on a charge, trying to get himself back into that 2nd position, which he probably deserves based on the pace that he has at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's, unfortunately for him, his race didn't quite pan out with that 15-second penalty, and now we have said that Rizzo's pace hasn't been brilliant, and he actually, in saying that, has reeled in 7/10 on Rizzo in just that last lap. So yeah, Winkleman has definitely got some late race pace here, as the tyres are probably starting to go off just a little bit here. Obviously, GT cars can last about a 1 hour race or longer on one set of tyres. They use them really nicely, but there is still tyre degradation. So these cars, they're going to not be feeling as nice as they were at the start of the race, and we can see that in the times as well, the fact that the times are starting to get slower and slower.
Just saw Wayne Hewitt and Dan King change position yet again, with Wayne Hewitt back in front of Dan King once more. So they've shuffled positions, 4 or 5 times in this race, these two drivers, which is always good to see when drivers change positions. Jackson Harlow also gets past Cameron Stubber. So still shuffling for positions back in the field. We've got Alex Court in the pits, though, probably needing to get a bit of damage fixed from that incident we saw earlier between he and Martin Silvassi.
Yep, and Race Control have ruled on that incident and have said no further action. So that's an interesting one from Race Control, and I can I can see why they'd think that, but what are your thoughts on that, Jay?
Yeah, interesting call. I'm not sure. I'm guessing they may be looking at Silvassi's self-penalised himself by having to come in and pit for 4 minutes worth of damage. I would have thought that Silvassi would have been probably more at fault or caught. I don't know. I'm probably going to have another 3, 4, 5, 25 looks at it before we can really say. It was a really bizarre incident at a spot that you never really see a crash.
Yeah, I imagine race control, in looking at it, have decided it was sort of a bit on both drivers, and maybe the move was too ambitious, and the result was sort of predictable and not the fault of either driver.
Jordan McDonald applying pressure to the back of Trent Thomas. Zach Hanlon's dropped a little bit on this lap, and McDonald looks really, really quick on this at this moment.
Yeah, that car's looking. Yeah, that car's looking very racy at the moment as Thomas sort of shuts the door mid-corner there to make sure McDonald doesn't try something cheeky up the inside. So you have to pull him behind there. But yeah, this car seems to be coming to him as the stick goes on. So it may be that McDonald, these tyres are in premium operating conditions, and now is the time to strike before the pit stops, because otherwise, once they cool down a bit through the pit lane, his car may go back to being not quite as nice as what he's looking for. So right now they're sitting in 4th and 5th position with Trent Thomas and Jordan McDonald, and Zach Hanlon ranging in from behind as well, trying to make up for those positions that he's lost again after that spin earlier we saw.
We're into the final third of this race, and the pit lane is starting to light up as well. Also just confirmed from race control that they did exactly as I just said. They've watched that replay about 25 times, and that's how they got to the decision of no further action, and probably couldn't make a decision. That means that there's nothing else to look at.
Yeah, so I guess it's when it comes to the point of you can't put the blame on any driver wholly, as they say in most motorsports regulations manuals. They can't give a penalty out. So in this case, it just looks like it was a bit of a racing incident. So just to point out, McDonald's actually dropped off a bit, but Thomas is in, Hanlon's in now. So McDonald is all by his lonesome out there, as now we've got Thomas and Hanlon in the pit lane. Louise, Paulo Gallen, Rizzo and Winkleman still all out there circulating, but as Jay, you said, there is definitely action in the pit lane here as cars come in for their final pit stops.
Yep, and interesting that we are in that final third of the race, and there's still a lot of cars out on the track. I thought there would have been a lot more action in the pits, considering that we're at the point where you can fill her up and get it home. So I'm very, very surprised that there are so few cars in the pits right now.
I think it's a matter of, with no tyre changes, these GT cars run just a little bit quicker when there's a lighter fuel load on. So if you're not trying to get out of some heavy traffic, the best route is just run the tank as long as you can, light as you can, get those quick laps in, and then fuel late as you can to get to the end.
We're on board with Dan King as he tries to get back past Wayne Hill. A massive moment coming up through Eau Rouge. Almost looped it through Radion. He's lost a big chunk of time, but that was a huge slide for Dan King. Thought we were going to see a car in the fence then.
Yeah, as these cars get further towards the end of the race, that whole thing of the tyres lose their edge. So coming through places like Eau Rouge, you're bound to have a few nasty slides and a few interesting moments as you come through there. And luckily he saved it. But it's interesting to see this battle between Hewitt and King as they continue to go back and forth, trying to decide who's going to end up finishing 11th or 12th. So I find it quite funny and quite interesting the way they keep going back and forth between each other as the race goes on.
We saw Trent Thomas and Zach Hanlon come in the pits together. They are now separated by about 2.5 seconds, which is about the difference in their pit stop times. We knew that Hanlon was going to have a longer stop due to that earlier pit stop in this race. Jamie McKnight also in the pits to make his final pit stop, as has Les Peck as well. So a few drivers have come in to make that final stop. So Lewis Paulo Gallen crosses the line and continues on for yet another lap. He's going to pit with about 7 laps to go in this race.
Yeah.
Same with Ross Rizzo, he stays out as well. So it's just those two guys taking the earlier stop of Zach Hanlon and Mental Blank.
Trent Thomas it was,
correct,
the driver. As Lastres also in the pits now. So if Schultz comes in, he continues on. Alex John continues on. Coriot also continues on. We go back to this battle. It looks like Dan King's dropped a fair bit of time at the end of this lap. He was right in underneath that rear wing and lost a little bit of ground. Now, there are
Yeah,
still battles going on out of the circuit. 23rd and 24th at the moment. Gene Fiddies and Alex Court. These guys are very, very close.
Yeah, so Gene's come back a little bit after that incident earlier on where he was flipping through the air, and now this has led to a bit of a battle going on here for these lapped cars. As you were saying, Alex Court, he went and got some damage repaired after that contact with, sorry, mental blank, with Silvassi. That's it, yeah, with Silvassi as they were coming up to Blanchimont. So Gene Fiddies in that PRA Race Stars car, currently just trying to get some points up and make this car work for him in the last 15 minutes of this race. As we get into the last quarter of the race, this is flying by. There is action all throughout the field as we've gone throughout this race here. So Fiddies looking fairly strong at the moment, and Court's car a little bit wide as they come through this section of the track here. Maybe not as comfortable as what he'd like to, possibly still carrying some damage.
Of course, they do have a spare car available to them in this race, so if they do get damage early on, which we saw Gene Fiddies in a real life race, he would not have had a chance to get the car back out on the circuit, but he and also Taylor Oakes at Blue and Engine at the start of the race have been able to get back out there and continue racing, which is what we want to see in these sort of races, in these sort of events. We want to see as many cars finish the race as possible, and the fact that every driver has an option for a spare car throughout the race does mean that we have a few extra finishes come the end of the event. We'll see who comes into the lane this time. Gallon continues on for another lap.
So that's interesting to see. You know, we do only have about 7 laps here according to the JRT timing that I'm having a look at here, and they still haven't come in, so this fuel must be lasting them quite a lot. I'm guessing for this last stop it will just be a top up as opposed to the first stop where we saw quite a lot of fuel go in to try and fill up that fuel tank. So Gallon, that gap back to Rizzo hasn't actually extended too much in the last few laps. We've just got Winkelman and McDonald have now come into the pit lane as well. So that leaves Gallon and Rizzo out on track at the moment as our leaders. There's still quite a few cars out on track here. Fifth place through to about 11th place still have not stopped. So obviously the fuel is lasting them quite a while deep into this race.
Out of that secondary pack of cars, the only car that has stayed out is Dan King. Winkelman, McDonald, Schultz, John, Ott, and Hewitt have all come in. So that's going to mean for the first time this race, Dan King and Wayne Hewitt aren't together. This is going to be a bit weird.
I know, it's going to freak us out a little bit here.
Probably going to freak them out a little bit.
Yeah, they've been looking at each other so long this race, it must be keeping them sane as they come through, as Dan King now comes through Oi Rouge. So he's all out by himself now. And having a look here, yeah, wow, we've had a few guys all come in that lap as well to finish those pit stops. So obviously getting to the point where fuel needs to go in these cars. Just looking at the pit stop times for Winkelman and McDonald here, both around 11 or 12 seconds, I should say there. So obviously a little bit shorter than the last stops.
Just saw Jackson Harlow hit the wall at the hairpin in the pit lane, and Trent Thomas, he's lost a lot of ground to Jordan McDonald, Anthony Winkelman. McDonald's jumped Trent Thomas by what's that? Probably a second and a half. McDonald was behind Thomas before the pit stops, so this is an interesting fallout from the pit stops. Trent Thomas does close that gap up, but McDonald's jumped a spot.
And that's probably good for McDonald as well, because he needs that pace to try and make it to the end and show. OPR have had great pace in the Porsches in our other sports car series, and now he's doing really well here to manage this Audi, which he was seeming to have some troubles with earlier and was a bit slow. So the car is really coming to him with about 6.5 laps left here.
Yeah, so our leader, Luis Paulo Gallon, now on the pit lane. That's probably about what we expected. And Ross Rizzo follows him in as well. So this looks like absolutely as late as these guys could possibly go.
Yeah, 11 lap stints for these guys. So that will be their maximum amount of running, which will leave us with 6 laps to go when they come out of the pits, around about 11 minutes by the time they get back out on the circuit. And Dan King as well about to come into the pits, I'm fairly sure, but we're going to stay with this battle because Winkelman is absolutely blitzed off down the road now that he's passed McDonald and Thomas. And Zach Hanlon's closed back up. As we said, it was about 2.5 seconds that he lost. He's now back right there in the draft again.
Yeah, the issue for Hanlon is that car just hasn't been comfortable underneath him, so it'll be interesting to see how it reacts when it gets up close to other cars and whether it starts acting up again on him. He does have to get past Trent Thomas, and Thomas, like I said, he has done quite well in this series to get those results, so he's going to want to stick around there and consolidate those points. As we see Gallon and Rizzo both come out of the pit lane now to retake first and second place here, and we've got Dan King in there as well. So Winkleman, McDonald, and Thomas will all go back into their top 5 positions there.
Yeah, everyone has come in and made their final pit stop, so field is cleansed. We actually have a bit more of an understanding of how this field is positioned. Gallon still with that massive lead, but Rizzo to Winkleman is a little bit closer than I was expecting. It's only 3 seconds, so Winkleman's done a great job closing that gap back up.
Yeah, great pace from Winkleman, and he is potentially, I think that might be about 17 seconds off the leader. He lost 15 seconds to that pit lane penalty, so the on-track pace for Winkleman has been mega this race. Unfortunately, an early mistake has cost him what he could have been fighting for a win.
Well, he would have had draft if he didn't make that mistake. He had so many laps where he had no draft. At the moment, he's got no draft. He's out there by himself, and he is still the fastest car out on track. So it's probably a what could have been or what might have been for Anthony Winkleman. He'll come up onto the tail of his teammate in Ross Rizzo. Probably with 2 to go as McDonald's around, and there's contact between Trent Thomas and Jordan McDonald. Big, heavy hit.
Oh, wow, that was massive as McDonald's gone around by himself and Thomas has come through and the front of his car is reared up in the air and Hanlon has gone right around them there, and that's 2 for the price of 1 pretty much. So unfortunate seeing Dan King's actually come around behind them and nearly hit McDonald as he gets going again. So wow, that was some massive contact there. And now that's McDonald and Thomas. Well, they're racers. It's going to be a pretty hard slog for the last 5 laps trying to keep those things straight. Thomas's car is absolutely bashed up in the front end.
Little bit of redemption there for Zach Hanlon as he manages to get those places back. Did the clever thing, straightened up the steering, used all of that runoff area to just avoid the scene of the accident. But unfortunately, it was Trent Thomas who just didn't have enough space or time to react to Jordan McDonald's spin.
It's a very, very difficult section of the track to change a line too. He obviously didn't have enough room to go around the outside. He was trying to hug the corner and go inside, but just not enough room. Good job from Hanlon, unlucky for Trent Thomas. And yet again, we're seeing an Audi have a slow, lazy spin at a high-speed corner.
Yeah, obviously something interesting going on with the setups here because of the setups in the car itself. As we mentioned earlier, Bo Albert gave us a little bit of insight into the Audi and how it had been performing with its latest updates. And it looks like it's just not agreeing with some of these drivers here tonight. And unfortunately, the Audi has been quite a popular car. So some of our top drivers have been suffering because of that. So that's really unfortunate to see.
Just at the back end of the top 10, John Schultz trying to hold on, with Alex John closing and closing very, very quickly. Alex John last lap 3/10 quicker and now well and truly in the draft.
Yeah, so in that Milo Mercedes there, a nice little Aussie livery for that one. And he's actually very, very close as well. Wow, he is really reeling in Schultz as they come through the middle section of the track now. So obviously got a good bit of pace under him there. Did start 19th as well. So Alex John has made some great moves up the field here to be plus 10 on his starting position.
I must say, with that livery, is there anything more Australian than that livery? You've got the Spirit of Tasmania, Bluntstone boots and Milo on the car. Like, can't have anything more Australian than that, can you?
Yeah, I don't think it gets any better than that. I think the Heuskenveld on the back is probably not quite as Australian, but that's all right. We can make that part of Australia for this round, I reckon.
No, it needs like Bush Mechanics or something on the back just to even it out. Schultz is. It looks like yeah. Bit of Rover and a Hills hoist on it, and we'll be right. We're going to cut away from this because have a look at how close Winkleman is now. He's got it down to 1 second. Winkleman is looking incredibly quick. 4 laps to go. There might be enough time for him to get this done. He's going to be right on the tail in the draft by the end of this lap.
Yeah, and that could be... We know that Ross Rizzo he doesn't fight very hard for positions because he knows that he can lose one position but still finish the race and you'll get a great points gain.
Commentator's curse. Sorry, boys. John Schultz around. Massive damage with an incident. Blanchimont. Sorry, John. I'll have to take that one, I think.
Yeah, that was all by himself there. He's just gotten on that AstroTurf. It's Corey Ott has had to take to the grass to go around him. I'm going to just check Corey Ott's speed there because he was flying 260 kilometers an hour. He went off the circuit there and still managed to pull it up at the bus stop. So well done to him. Unfortunate that John Schultz had to go around there, but that was pretty spectacular from Ott. Evasive action out of Blanchimont.
CPR replay on board with Ott. You can see, have a look at how, oh geez, he's lucky to pull it up, number one, lucky to not make contact, number two, and lucky to not need to come into the pits for a change of underpants, because that was full on.
I think he'll be wearing his brown race suit today after that one.
But that's another position gained for Corey Ott, who started 31st on the grid after not having a qualifying time. Now up into 9th. Another, we'd call him a hard charger, Steve Jansen, who also has gained 22 positions so far this race.
And if we look a bit further down as well, Jackson Suzlin Harlow is up 21. So there are some big movers in this race that are really, they're really charging through. So it's great to see, and we've obviously seen some of the progress made by particularly Steve Jansen and Corey Ott, as they've made some great overtakes to try and get through. And Corey Ott is actually, his pace is quite good as well, 4 tenths faster. Sorry, a couple of tenths faster than the likes of Alex John on the last lap. So I don't know if he'll be able to do anything with it unless John makes a mistake, but still showcasing that pace that he's had all race long.
It's on between teammates Ross Rizzo, Anthony Winkleman. Have a look at how close Winkleman is now. He's gained nearly a full second on this lap.
Yeah, so it looks like Winkleman is very close now. So he has 3 laps to make this work. So this will be really interesting to see here as they come through to start the next lap. Winkleman could get the draft here. The fact that they're both Mercedes nullifies that advantage of having a big Mercedes engine in there. It's just about getting the best exit, particularly out of Oil Rouge up the hill here, and trying to maximise the track usage without getting slowdowns or anything like that. And looks like they've both just about done that. Rizzo actually skipped ahead a little bit there, but we'll see if Winkleman can get close enough for a move. Probably going to be a little bit too far out. We'll see. These guys might be communicating on what's best for the team at the moment, but Winkleman closing. Not going to make that move though. Just going to stick him behind. Try and stay close through this middle section and see if you can make a move at the next opportunity.
Well, both of these guys are fighting for the championship too. Sorry, David.
Yeah, I was about to say that Ross Rizzo, I believe, is currently 2nd place in the standings. I don't know if that gives him any seniority within the team and within this battle, but there's still quite a bit of the championship left that maybe it would be a little bit too early to call team orders.
Well, knowing from the past that Trick Sim Sports usually don't play too many team orders, they just play smart strategies with fuel, but other than that, they usually race pretty hard, these guys, so hopefully we'll see a pretty intense battle for the next 2.5 laps between teammates.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting to see, as well as the fact I think we'll see a lot of respect between these two. They have been teammates for a while now and have certainly raced up the front together for a while. So as we come now to the end of this middle part of the track that requires a lot of car control and a more downforce-oriented setup, now we're coming back onto the straights. So this will be really interesting here. Winkleman has actually gotten in a little bit closer, less than half a second now, towards the back of Rizzo. So it'll be interesting to see, can he throw it up the inside at the bus stop? Maybe. To put it up there, you really need to be very close to alongside, but Winkleman, he's very close here. Nails the exit out of Blanchimont, doesn't take too much curve. Rizzo's going to go defensive just ever so slightly to block off a move into the bus stop here. Winkleman's going to have to wait. He's trying to maximise that exit and get the best run out of the last part of the bus stop here. Rizzo, a little bit slow here, but Winkleman not quite the exit he was looking for.
Oh, Trent Thomas around! Massive hit between he and Jordan McDonald.
Massive damage on Trent Thomas's car. Jordan McDonald was closing in on him recently, but then through Blanchimont there, Trent Thomas has lost the rear of the car, gone nose first into the wall, and a lot of smoke, and he's missing the engine cover there from what I can see.
That was a huge hit.
Over, potentially, for Trent Thomas. Massive damage.
I dare say his engine is smoking after that one, and it looks like, I don't think there was any contact there between McDonald and himself. He just got wide with that damage on the car and tried to keep it, and then, yeah, went into the wall and did a few spins. So I dare say, well, he's still going there. He's still trying to get it back to pit lane, so he may still try and finish this race off.
Well, he needs championship points, doesn't he? He needs to make sure that he can get as many points as he can. As Winkleman now has a look at Ross Rizzo. doesn't get the move done. We're just seeing Lastres also up, trying to get the move done on McDonald. McDonald limping this car back. Lastres around the outside gets the move done. Go back to teammates though, because this is well and truly on. Trent Thomas has brought it into the pits though.
Yeah, so that'll be, well, race over in terms of good position for him. So, but we'll go back to Rizzo and Winkelmann here with 1.5 laps left to go. The question is, can Winkelmann make this move for second? All out, a good showing in second and third for Rizzo and Winkelmann, even after that speeding and pit lane penalty we assumed for Winkelmann that had him held in pit lane for another 15 seconds. So now, again, coming...
I actually think, sorry, Brock. I actually think that Winkelmann was waiting until this last lap to make the move so that Rizzo couldn't come back on the last lap. I actually think he was sort of waiting for the right moment to try and get the move done. He sort of got out of the throttle the lap previous at the bus stop, thought about making a move, got out of it, was close enough to make a move down the Kemmel Straight last lap, got out of it. I reckon he's waiting for this lap to get the move done. It makes it harder for Rizzo to come back.
That is a very sound theory. I've got to say, that makes a lot of sense, particularly with the way the draft is around here. All it takes is one little mistake from Winkelmann on a lap before now, which is our last lap as the clock ticks down to 0 and we begin this last lap. And Winkelmann will lose that second place. So now we watch this battle intensely. Winkelmann is just about tapping the bumper of Rizzo now. So it is very, very close here at the moment, as they're within about 300ths of a second of each other here. And we'll watch as they come into oil.
Past Wayne Hewitt, potentially they're side by side in the bus stop. Corriott did manage to close that gap and has gotten past. Sorry to jump across you there, Brock.
No, that's all right. That's good for Corriott there. That's yet another position for him. Plus 24 now. Up to 7th place from his starting position. But watch now, Rizzo is defending from Winkelmann now. He knows what's coming. Winkelmann's going to try hold it around the outside. Rizzo cuts him off there to make sure he can't get that run. This is going to be intense. This last we've got about a half a lap left here. Watch for Winkelmann to try and make a move. He's looking, won't do it down here. Smart move. Watching for Rizzo to run a little bit wide, but Rizzo keeps that nice tight line. Very good car control through there. Winkelmann's looking everywhere. He's trying to find a place to make the move, but he just can't make it work. Surely not into this next part of the circuit. It would be crazy to think. He takes a look. Gamesmanship is on here. Winkelmann trying to psych out his teammate by any means possible, but Rizzo, the steady-minded bloke that he is, not breaking down to Winkelmann's threats there, but Winkelmann right up behind him. Goes a little bit wide as we come through this first part here, but going to still be just as close behind Rizzo as it comes up to the very last part of the circuit here, which is the very long straights leading into the bus stop and Blanchamont. Now, we'll watch as they come through this last section. The run for Winkelmann is going to be extremely important here as they come out. Rizzo runs a little bit wide, maximising that exit. And now we'll watch as they come down the straight here. Winkelmann looks a little too far away, but it is quite a long one. And we'll watch if he's very close to Blanchamont. He might be able to try and move into the bus stop and try and make it work. But remember, the start-finish line is very close after the end of the bus stop there.
Congratulations. Lewis Fallon, dominant drive, but here comes Winkelmann and Rizzo. And there's contact between teammates. This isn't over.
Will Winkelmann get it? No, he might not. Rizzo looks like he's going to get it just across the line here, and it was very close between teammates there. Rizzo went a little bit wide at the bus stop there. 700ths of a second.
Incredibly close. Congratulations, though, to Lewis Gallen. He had no TV time, which means that you've had a very, very easy race for the most part. He's just been dominant tonight. Was lucky or unlucky for John Peasnick to end up with issues throughout the night, but what a drive from Gallon, taking advantage of that, and gets himself a very dominant win. It's still not over though. Have a look, Damon Stockton and Steve Jansen.
We could see a move up the inside or around the outside here. It doesn't look like he'll be quite close enough, as he's very, very close. They've nearly made contact, and Jansen. Jansen. They've made a little bit of contact there, and again, that's going to be a similar finish to the likes of Rizzo and Winkelmann. So that was very close. A little bit of contact there, but it looks like Stockton will just hold on to that, and Jansen will just have to be happy with his plus 23 positions for the night. What an effort!
Jansen only missed out by 500ths of a second, so very, very close throughout the field. We will get the results up on screen as a few of our cars a little bit further back in the field do come up to the line, but there are no more battles left. Lewis Gallen wins by 11 seconds. from Ross Rizzo, Anthony Winkleman in third, 78 thousandths of a second separating those two drivers. Zach Hanlon, a race of what might have been for him. He finishes in fourth with Lastres in fifth position. Sixth position goes to Jordan McDonald, limped at home in the end, with Corey Ott, biggest mover in the field, finishes in seventh. Alex John in eighth. Wayne Hewitt, ninth position. And Damon Stockton rounds out the top 10.
And in 11th tonight, we have Steve Jansen, who we just saw on that last lap, plus 23 positions tonight. A great effort from him. Dan King in 12th. Jackson Suzlin Harlow, 13th. Jamie McKnight, 14th. 15th is Cameron Stubber. 16th is Les Peck. 17th, Andrew Mogridge, who we saw on camera quite a bit. 18th, Blair Walton. 19th is Trent Thomas. And 20th, Alex Court.
Rounding out the back of the field in 21st place is Phil Otto, then James Hanna 22nd, Tim Owema 23rd, Gene Fiddies 24th after some problems for him, and further down the field, Taylor Oakes 25th, Martin Silvassi 26th, and then the last two cars to have completed more than 20 laps is John Schultz and then Isaac Nichols.
Very, very interesting night of racing. We'll hopefully see some drivers come in for a very, very quick chat very soon. But a massive couple of weeks coming up here on V8 Online, isn't it, boys? We've got Friday night, the AOSC, Sunday, the majors, and then next week, it's Bathurst week, boys. It's Bathurst week.
That's gotta tell you that rustles the jimmies a bit. I'm very excited for that. Bathurst in the V8 is it's basically the holy grail of Australian motorsport and of Australian sim racing. So I think that's going to be an absolutely awesome event presented by OSR and V8 Scops. And I think we're in for a fun time, and with official as well. I'm very excited.
Yeah, cannot
That's
wait.
correct. Some guys think that Christmas is in December, but us, we know that it's in September and October,
Obviously,
and it's Bathurst.
Let's grab these two boys at the same time because I think this will be a good chat to have together. Second and third place, both in the booth together. Ross Rizzo, Anthony Winkleman. Firstly, Ross, to you. It was a fairly boring race for you until maybe 2 or 3 laps to go. It was pretty full on at the end. Talk us through.
Yeah, with the exception of the last 2 or 3 laps, I think that race epitomizes my entire sim racing career. Just do nothing, plod along, inherit from other people's mistakes or misfortunes. You know, John was really unlucky with that disconnect, and then Ant went and took us to a blast of the past back to season 1. I haven't actually battled him in trick colours, so it was great to actually fight him again. You know, back from an era where I actually used to win some races in this thing.
We were saying during the race that you've had a fairly quiet season, but you somehow just managed to pick off spots and you find yourself in a great position in the championship just from consistency once again.
Yeah, I guess it's the it's all I really know how to do, and I would like to be able to challenge more for victories and podiums. And yeah, the results are consistent, but you know, where I'm getting consistent top 5s, top 10s, there are guys getting consistent podiums and victories. So it's not working quite so well this time around, but we're still in with a shout. So we'll give it everything we can.
Anthony, to you, great first stint and great pace you had, but we are guessing you had a speeding in pit lane penalty at the first stop.
yeah, mate, it's becoming a thing I do recently. It's the second one in 2 races now, so not real happy. But yeah, look, team orders. Ross did not want me to pass, so I had to tuck in. He did really well, man. You know, kudos to him. He just drives his own race and does his thing and just collects points. So it's really good to see.
That last lap or last 2 laps, we were sort of commenting, were you waiting for the last lap to potentially make a move? Were you thought about waiting and trying to work out the best spot to make a move on the last lap?
Well, I kind of wanted to be in here for the right reasons, not for the reasons of me taking out my own teammates. So I thought I'll be patient and we can actually have a bit of fun. And like that whole, majority of that last lap, we're sitting there pissing ourselves laughing. So it was really good fun. And like you said, bring us back to a heyday when we were battling out and in different colours. So yeah, it was good fun.
Of course, the next race in this series, we go to a relatively unknown when we head to Alton Park. You boys looking forward to that one?
Me personally, I love it. It's a great little track. You don't see it often enough, in my opinion. It's an awesome little racing track. It's going to be extremely hard to pass. Super tight, but yeah, don't know how this bus is going to go around there, but we'll give it a crack anyway.
Yeah, well, back when the BOP first was first released before the World Championship patches. Yeah, well, I think Walton was one of the first rounds, and I had a fantastic week. I thought it was such a cool combo, so it'd be great to get back there.
Well, good luck for the next round in 2 weeks' time. Congratulations, boys. We better let you thank who you need to thank.
Yeah, Rossi, you do the honours, mate.
I was going to let you do it.
Just Trick Custom Fabrications, Not Rider Designs, and you guys for the broadcast, and GLA for hosting the series.
Congratulations, boys. Second and third tonight, Ross Rizzo and Anthony Winkle. We've also got our race winner in the booth. Congratulations, Lewis Paulo Gallen. Talk us through that race. Obviously, with John Peasnick having issues, you're able to just get out in front and dominate once you got into that lead. Hopefully we've got you there, mate. Your microphone's not on at the moment. No, doesn't look like we're having any luck at the moment.
Gotta love technical difficulties.
It's always good, isn't it? Always happens.
Have you got him muted, or is that on his end?
That is on his end.
I believe.
Yeah, unfortunately. See if we can get him back in a sec. No, looks like we're still not having any luck, but congratulations to Lewis on a fantastic drive and a dominant drive. Fastest lap of the race as well, which is always a good end to the race as well. But boys, we might wrap it up. It's been a very, very entertaining night of racing. And as we said, a big, big next 2 weeks coming up here on V8's Online.
Yeah, that's it. With so much coming up, it's really, really exciting. And definitely for everyone, come along and watch. There's always some sort of racing going on here at V8's Online, whether it's dirt, V8s, GT. We've got it all, so definitely come and have a look. And like Jay said, next week's Bathurst week, which is a pretty huge week for the Australian and New Zealand iRacing communities. So definitely come along, and you'll see some of the best in Australia and New Zealand going at it.
Not only that too. Sorry, Dave, I was going to say,
plug the Porsche Super Cup Australasia
good boy.
here at same time next week, and it will also be at a Spa-Francorchamps circuit.
Yep, looking forward to that. And don't forget next weekend as well. Make sure you subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network. Also, big event happening in Sydney next weekend. If you are in Sydney, make sure you do come along and see us in person. We will be there. Fonty and myself will be there. Bo and Zach will also be there. We will be at Eastern Creek, Sydney Motorsport Park for the VSR Showdown. So make sure you do come along to that. And also a big announcement coming from us here at V8's Online in the next 24 hours. So make sure you do like our Facebook page and keep up to date with the very, very interesting and exciting news coming up in the next 24 hours. So make sure you do follow our Facebook page and also follow us on Twitter as well at V8's Online. Thank you, Brock. Thank you, David, for a fantastic night of racing.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always good to come along for the ride for the Super Cup and the GT3s, and I'm looking forward to seeing the Porsches here back at Spa next week as well, and on to the next round of the Geodesic Racing Sprint Series Australasia in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. Thank you, Brock. Always a pleasure. Always good racing as well.
Big shout out to Reece Gardner, who unfortunately was having technical issues and couldn't be here tonight, but I was more than happy to jump into the seat because it was an awesome night of racing. Big thank you to the crew at GT Leagues Australia for their support behind the scenes and running all of these awesome series that we bring you on a Wednesday night. Our next broadcast, as we said, will be Friday night on V8's Online on our normal channel, which will be the LeBlanc Australian Online Supercar Championship from Laguna Seca for a 60-60 format race. 2 races, reverse grid for the second race. It's going to be an awesome night of racing, so make sure you do tune in for that one. Until next time, it is bye for now.
The following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.